What would you do if the man you'd been with for 30 years betrayed you? Would you cry? Would you beg for him back? I did neither. What I did surprised both of us. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to Mama's Truth Tales, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story from. I want to know how far this message has traveled, because what I'm about to share changed everything I thought I knew about myself. My name is Susan. I'm 55 years old, and for the past 3 decades, I thought I had the perfect life. John and I met when we were both 25, fresh out of college, with dreams bigger than our tiny apartment in Chicago. He was studying to be a financial advisor, and I was working as an elementary school teacher. We fell in love over shared pizzas and late-night conversations about the future we'd build together. We got married the following year in a small ceremony at my parents' church. I wore my grandmother's wedding dress, the lace yellowed but beautiful, and John looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. That look, I would remember it later, would haunt me for years. Our life together unfolded like a storybook. We had 2 beautiful children, Emma and Michael. I quit teaching to raise them, spending my days driving to soccer practice and ballet lessons, helping with homework, making elaborate birthday cakes shaped like castles and dinosaurs. John worked long hours, climbing the corporate ladder, and I built our home. I made it a sanctuary, a place where love lived in every corner. By the time I reached 50, both kids had moved out. Emma was working as a graphic designer in New York, and Michael was finishing law school in Boston. John and I were finally alone again, just the 2 of us, like in the beginning. I thought this would be our golden years. The time when we'd rediscover each other, travel, enjoy the life we'd worked so hard to build. But something had changed. I just couldn't see it yet. John started working later and later. Big client, he'd say, kissing my forehead as he grabbed his briefcase. Don't wait up. His phone was always face down on the table. During dinner, he'd take calls in the garage, claiming it was a work crisis. When I asked about his day, his answers became shorter, more distant, like he was reading from a script he'd memorized, but didn't believe in. Our anniversary was coming up. 30 years, 3 decades of marriage. I wanted to make it special, to remind us both of what we'd built together. I made reservations at Marcello's, the same Italian restaurant where he'd proposed all those years ago. I bought a new dress, deep blue, the color he always said brought out my eyes. I even went to the salon and got my hair done, spending more than I should have, but telling myself we deserved this celebration. The night before our anniversary, I was in the kitchen preparing his favorite meal, pot roast with roasted vegetables, when his phone buzzed on the counter. He was upstairs in the shower, and normally I wouldn't have looked. I respected his privacy. We trusted each other. Or so I thought. But something made me glance at the screen. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was all those months of feeling like I was living with a stranger. Maybe it was simply fate. The message was from a contact saved as Amy Jim. It read, "Wife's working late tomorrow. Right. Can't wait to have you all to myself. Miss your touch, baby." My heart stopped. The wooden spoon I'd been holding clattered to the floor, sending droplets of gravy across the tile. I stood there, frozen, staring at those words until they blurred. My hands started trembling, a violent shake I couldn't control. I grabbed the phone, my thumb hovering over the message, and I saw more. Weeks of messages. Months, actually. "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. When can we meet again?" And John's responses, "Tomorrow, my place. Susan's visiting her sister. You make me feel alive again. She doesn't understand me like you do." That last one, it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. She doesn't understand me. I'd spent 30 years understanding him. I understood his coffee order without asking. I knew he liked his shirts pressed a certain way. I remembered his mother's birthday, when he forgot. I held him when his father died. I celebrated every promotion, every success. I heard the shower turn off upstairs. My survival instincts kicked in. I quickly memorized the phone number from Amy's contact, then set the phone back exactly where it had been. I picked up the wooden spoon, rinsed it and continued stirring the gravy, though my vision was swimming with tears. John came downstairs, his hair still damp, wearing his favorite gray sweater. "Smells amazing, honey," he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the pot of gravy at him, but instead I smiled. A smile that felt like broken glass, cutting my face from the inside. Thanks, it'll be ready in 10 minutes. We sat at dinner, the table I'd set with our good china and the candles I'd lit to make it romantic. He told me about a difficult client, about office politics, about everything and nothing. I nodded, made the right sounds, asked the right questions. Inside, I was dying. That night, lying next to him in our bed, the bed where we'd made love thousands of times, where we'd conceived our children, where we'd held each other through nightmares and celebrated dreams, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to his peaceful breathing, and wondered how long this had been going on. Months, clearly. Maybe longer. Who was Amy? How did they meet? At the gym, apparently. Was she younger? Prettier? Did she have the flat stomach I'd lost after 2 pregnancies? Did she have the smooth skin I'd traded for laugh lines and crow's feet? The questions tortured me until dawn broke through our curtains. The next morning was our anniversary. John had already left for work by the time I woke up, drained from my sleepless night. There was a note on his pillow, "Happy anniversary. Love you. See you tonight at Marcello's. 7 p.m. Love you." 2 words that now felt like a cruel joke. I spent the day in a fog. I showered, did my makeup with shaking hands, put on the blue dress. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. My eyes were hollow, red-rimmed from crying. My smile, when I tried to practice it, looked like a grimace. At 6:45 p.m., I drove to Marcello's. The restaurant was exactly as I remembered, with its dim lighting and checkered tablecloths, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce filling the air. John was already there, sitting at a table by the window. He stood when he saw me, smiling, holding a bouquet of roses. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing my cheek. I wanted to slap him. Instead, I took the roses and sat down. Dinner was a performance. He ordered wine, expensive Chianti. We toasted to 30 years. He talked about our memories, about the kids, about how lucky he was to have me. Every word felt like acid on my skin. "Susan," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "I know I've been working a lot lately. I'm sorry I haven't been around as much, but I want you to know, you're still the most important person in my life." I looked at our intertwined fingers, his wedding ring glinting in the candlelight. A ring I'd placed on his finger 30 years ago, when we'd promised to love each other forever, in sickness and health, for better or worse. "John," I heard myself say, my voice surprisingly steady. "Who's Amy?" His face went white. Not pale, white. Like someone had drained all the blood from his body in an instant. His hand jerked away from mine. "What?" he stammered. I mean who, Amy. From the gym. The one you're sleeping with." The words hung in the air between us like a guillotine blade, sharp and final. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. His eyes darted around the restaurant, checking to see if anyone could hear us. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Susan, I can explain. Explain." I felt a strange calm wash over me, the calm that comes after a hurricane, when everything is already destroyed and there's nothing left to lose. "You've been cheating on me. On our anniversary. On the day we promised to love each other forever. What exactly are you going to explain?" It's not like that," he said, running his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd seen him do 1,000 times when he was stressed. "It just happened. I didn't plan it." "How long?" "What? How long?" He looked down at his plate, at the untouched lasagna that was probably getting cold. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. 180 days of lies. Of kisses that tasted like betrayal. Of I love yous that meant nothing. "She's 28, he continued. "And I hadn't even asked, didn't even want to know. We met at the gym. She's a personal trainer. It started as just conversations. She made me feel young again, made me feel like I was still, I don't know, exciting, desirable. And I don't." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes broke something inside me that I didn't even know could break. Pity. He pitied me. "Susan, you're 55. You've let yourself go. You stopped trying. You're always in sweatpants, always cooking or cleaning. When's the last time you wanted to try something new? When's the last time you surprised me?" The words hit me like physical blows. each one carefully aimed, designed to wound. I sat there in my new blue dress, my hair professionally done, on our anniversary, and my husband of 30 years told me I wasn't enough. "I want a divorce," he said finally. "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I should have been honest, but I want to be happy. I want to live what's left of my life with someone who makes me feel alive." The restaurant seemed to tilt around me. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white. Somewhere in the background, I could hear Italian music playing, could hear other couples laughing, celebrating, living their normal lives while mine shattered into a million pieces. "You want a divorce?" I repeated, my voice flat. "Yes, I've already talked to a lawyer. We can split everything fairly. The house, the savings, I'll make sure you're taken care of. Taken care of." Like I was a problem to be solved. A mess to be cleaned up. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor, and several people turned to look. I didn't care. I picked up my glass of wine, the expensive Chianti we'd toasted our love with just an hour ago, and I poured it slowly over his head. The red liquid ran down his face, soaking into his white shirt, dripping onto his lap. He sat there, stunned, mouth open like a fish gasping for air. 30 years, I said, and my voice didn't shake. 30 years I gave you. I gave up my career to raise your children. I kept your house. I supported your dreams. I loved you when you were nobody, when you had nothing. And this is how you repay me. I grabbed my purse and walked out of Marcello's, past the shocked faces of the waiters and the other diners who'd witnessed my small rebellion. Outside, the Chicago night was cold, the October wind cutting through my thin dress. I stood on the sidewalk, shaking not from the cold but from the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I drove home in a daze. The house was dark and empty, mocking me with its silence. I walked through rooms that suddenly felt foreign, like a museum of a life that was no longer mine. The living room where we'd watched our kids take their first steps. The kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals. The bedroom where I'd slept next to a stranger for who knows how long. I sat on the couch and called Emma. "Mom." Her voice was bright, happy. "How was dinner? Tell me everything." And that's when I broke. The tears I'd been holding back all night, all week, all those months of sensing something was wrong, they all came flooding out. I sobbed into the phone, ugly crying that made it hard to breathe, hard to speak. "Mom, Mom, what's wrong? What happened?" "Your father." I managed to choke out between sobs. "He's leaving me. For a 28-year-old, he wants a divorce." There was silence on the other end. "Then I'm coming home. Tonight. Don't move. I'll be there in 4 hours." Michael called 10 minutes later. Emma had texted him. He was angry, protective, talking about lawyers and making Dad pay, but I barely heard him. I sat on that couch, in my blue dress, mascara running down my face, and I felt something inside me die. The woman who'd believed in forever. The woman who trusted blindly. The woman who'd shaped her entire identity around being someone's wife. That woman was gone, and I didn't know who was left in her place. Emma arrived at 2 a.m., her eyes red from crying during the drive from New York. She found me still sitting on the couch, still in that blue dress, surrounded by crumpled tissues. She didn't say anything. She just wrapped her arms around me and held me while I fell apart all over again. Michael showed up the next morning with coffee and bagels from the deli down the street. He looked like he hadn't slept either, his jaw tight with anger. "Where is he?" he asked, looking around the house as if expecting to find his father hiding in a corner. "I don't know," I said, my voice hoarse from crying. "He didn't come home last night." "Good," Michael said darkly, "because if I see him right now, I can't promise I won't punch him." The next 2 weeks were a blur of pain and paperwork. John moved out, taking only his clothes and his laptop. He left everything else, the furniture we'd picked out together, the photos of our family, the life we'd built. Emma stayed with me, working remotely from her old childhood bedroom. Michael came by every day after his classes, bringing food because I'd stopped eating, stopped doing much of anything really. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. I'd start to do something simple like make toast and forget halfway through, finding the bread sitting in the toaster hours later, cold and hard. I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. My eyes were hollow. My skin looked gray. I'd lost 10 pounds, not from exercise but from heartbreak, and my clothes hung loose on my frame. My friends from the neighborhood came by with casseroles and sympathy. "You'll get through this," they said, patting my hand. "Time heals all wounds." But their eyes said something different. They said I'd become a cautionary tale, a warning to other wives. "Watch out. Or this could happen to you too." The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday. John wanted to split everything. 50-50. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts. All very fair, very civilized. Like our 30 years together could be divided up, like assets on a balance sheet. I signed them with shaking hands. I thought that was my lowest point. I was wrong. What came next would either destroy me completely, or force me to become someone I never imagined I could be. 3 months after that terrible anniversary dinner, I hit rock bottom. It was a Saturday morning, and Emma had gone back to New York the week before. Michael was busy with finals. I was alone in the house that was now just mine, and I couldn't get out of bed. What was the point? I had no job, no purpose. My identity had been John's wife for so long that without him I didn't know who I was. I was too old to start over, too tired, too broken. I lay there staring at the ceiling and seriously considered giving up. Not in a dramatic way, but just in a slow fade. Stop eating. Stop trying. Let the darkness win. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something made me reach for it. "Susan, it's Linda Reynolds. From the gym? We used to do Zumba together before you quit." Linda. I vaguely remembered her, an energetic woman in her early 60s, with short silver hair and laugh lines around her eyes. We'd been friendly but not friends. "Hi Linda," I managed, my voice scratchy from disuse. "Honey, I heard about John. I am so sorry. Listen, I know this is forward, but I'm at the gym right now, and I think you should come down here. Right now. Don't think about it. Just get dressed and come." "Linda, I don't think I can. I'm not really up for. I'm not taking no for an answer. I'll wait for you in the lobby." 30 minutes. She hung up before I could protest further. I lay there for another 5 minutes, debating. Then, for reasons I still don't fully understand, I got up. I put on ancient sweatpants and a t-shirt that smelled faintly of mothballs. I didn't bother with makeup. I barely ran a brush through my hair, but I got in my car and drove to Lifetime Fitness on Oak Street. Linda was waiting, exactly as she'd promised. She took one look at me, and her face filled with compassion, not pity. "There's a difference." "Come on," she said, linking her arm through mine. "We're not working out today. We're just going to walk on the treadmill and talk." We walked side by side on adjacent treadmills, our pace slow and steady, and Linda told me her story. 10 years ago, my husband left me for his secretary. Classic, right? I was 52. I thought my life was over. I spent 6 months in bed, gained 40 pounds, lost all my friends because I was too depressing to be around. I looked at her, shocked. This vibrant, confident woman had been where I was? What changed? I asked. One day my daughter said something to me. She said, "Mom, you're letting him win. You're letting him take everything. Your health, your happiness, your future. Is that really what you want his legacy to be?" And I realized she was right. I was giving him power over me even after he was gone. She increased the speed on her treadmill slightly, and I matched her pace. So I started small. I started coming here every day, just walking. Then I joined a book club. Then I took a photography class at the community center. Little by little, I built a new life. A better life, actually. And you know what the funny thing is? 2 years later, my ex came crawling back, said he'd made a mistake, that the secretary was boring, that he wanted his real life back. "What did you do?" I asked, though I could guess from the mischievous smile on her face. I laughed in his face, because by then I'd realized I was better off without him. I'd discovered who I was without being someone's wife, and that woman was pretty damn amazing. We walked in silence for a few minutes while I processed her words. "Susan," Linda said gently, "I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But you have a choice right now. You can let this destroy you, or you can let it transform you. Which do you want?" I thought about that blue dress I'd worn, about the woman who'd tried so hard to please a man who didn't appreciate her. About 30 years of making myself smaller, quieter, less. I want to transform, I whispered. Linda smiled. Then let's get started. That day marked the beginning of my new life. Linda became my lifeline, my guide through the wilderness of reinvention. We met at the gym 3 times a week. At first I could barely walk for 20 minutes without getting winded. But slowly, gradually, I got stronger. And something strange happened. As my body got stronger, so did my mind. I started sleeping better, eating better. I cut my hair short, a pixie cut that made me look younger, fresher. I cleaned out my closet, throwing away all the baggy sweatpants and oversized t-shirts I'd hidden in for years. I bought new clothes in colors I'd always loved, but John said were too bright: emerald green, deep purple, crimson red. Emma noticed the change during one of our video calls. "Mom, you look different." "Good different. I feel different," I admitted. Like I'm finally waking up after a very long sleep. 4 months after my gym resurrection, Linda invited me to a networking event for women entrepreneurs at a hotel downtown. "You used to be a teacher," she said. "You're good with people. You should think about doing something with that." "I haven't worked in 28 years, I protested. "Who would hire me?" "Maybe you don't need someone to hire you. Maybe you hire yourself." The event was overwhelming at first. A ballroom full of confident women in business suits, talking about ventures and investments and profit margins. I felt like an imposter in my new emerald blazer, clutching a glass of wine like a life preserver. But then I met Margaret Chen, a woman in her 70s, who ran an online tutoring business. "I started this when I was 68, she told me. "My husband had just died, and I needed something to do with my time. Now I have 12 tutors working for me, and we help kids all over the country." "How did you learn to do all that?" "The technology, the business side." She laughed. "YouTube, honey. YouTube and Google, and a lot of trial and error. If I can do it, trust me, anyone can." That conversation planted a seed. I'd always loved teaching. What if I could do it again, but on my own terms? From home. What if I could build something that was entirely mine? I started small. I set up a simple website, offering online tutoring in elementary math and reading. I posted flyers at the local library and the coffee shop. My first client was Mrs. Henderson's grandson, a 3rd grader struggling with fractions. I charged $20 an hour, which seemed like too much, but Mrs. Henderson paid happily and told me I should charge more. Within 2 months, I had 5 regular students. Within 4 months, I had 12. I was making decent money, but more importantly, I was making a difference. Parents sent me grateful emails. Kids who'd been failing were now passing. One mother cried when she told me I'd saved her son's school year. I felt useful again. Valued. Not as someone's wife, but as myself. The physical transformation continued. I'd lost 30 pounds, not from starving, but from eating right and exercising regularly. I had muscles I didn't know existed. My skin glowed. My eyes were bright again. When I looked in the mirror now, I saw a woman I was proud to be. On what would have been our 31st anniversary, I treated myself to dinner at a new French restaurant in the Loop. I sat alone at a table for one, ordered the most expensive item on the menu, and enjoyed every bite. A man at the bar tried to buy me a drink, and for the first time in my adult life, I flirted back. Nothing came of it, but the fact that I could, that I wanted to, that felt like victory. I was sitting in my home office on a Tuesday afternoon, helping a 5th grader master long division over Zoom, when my doorbell rang. I excused myself and went to answer it. John stood on my porch. Our porch, except it wasn't ours anymore. It was mine. He looked terrible. His face was gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes. He'd lost weight too, but not in a healthy way. His clothes hung on him like they were borrowed from a larger man. "Susan," he said, and his voice cracked. "Can we talk?" I should have slammed the door in his face, but curiosity got the better of me. "You have 5 minutes," I said, not inviting him in. I made a mistake, a huge mistake. Amy, she left me. 3 months ago, she said I was boring, that I was too old, that she thought I had more money. He laughed bitterly. "She was using me, Susan, and I was too stupid to see it." "And," I said coolly. And I want to come home. I want us to try again. We can go to counseling. We can travel. We can do whatever you want. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He looked at me with those same eyes that had looked at me with pity a year ago at Marcello's. But now they were pleading. Desperate. I studied him for a long moment. This man I'd spent 30 years loving. This man who'd shattered me so completely, I thought I'd never recover. And I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just a calm, clear certainty. No, I said simply. No, Susan, please. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. 30 years of marriage, that has to count for something. It does count for something, I said. It taught me what I don't want. What I won't accept. And that's being with someone who sees me as less than. Who makes me feel small. I never meant to, but you did. You looked at me and saw someone who'd let herself go. Someone who wasn't exciting enough. Someone who was too old to be desirable. I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. The funny thing is, John, you were right. I had let myself go. Not physically, but mentally. I'd forgotten who I was outside of being your wife. But this past year, I've remembered. And that woman, she doesn't need you. Susan, I have a business now. Did you know that? I'm a tutor. I have 23 regular students and a waiting list. I'm making good money, not as much as you made, but enough. More than enough. I bought a new car last month. A red one. You always said red was too flashy for me. I could see him processing this, trying to reconcile the woman standing in front of him with the woman he'd left. I go to the gym 5 days a week. I've taken up painting. I joined a book club. I have friends, real friends, not just people I knew through you. I have a life, John. A good life. And there's no room in it for you. You look good, he said weakly. Really good. I know. I feel good too, better than I have in years. Decades, maybe. Is there someone else? He asked, and I could hear the jealousy in his voice. That's none of your business. But no, there's no one. And that's the point. I don't need someone to complete me. I'm complete all by myself. He stood there, this man who'd once held all the power in our relationship, looking lost and small on my porch. I really am sorry, he said. For everything. I know. And I forgive you. Not for you, but for me. Because holding on to anger was making me sick. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'm taking you back. It means I'm letting go. I stepped back and started to close the door. Susan, he said desperately, don't I get a second chance? I paused. You already had your chance, John. 30 years of chances. You threw them away for a 28-year-old who made you feel young. Well, I hope it was worth it. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. Through the window I watched him walk back to his car, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Part of me, a very small part, felt sorry for him, but a much larger part felt free. That evening I called Emma and Michael and told them about John's visit. I'm proud of you, Mom, Emma said. That took strength. You deserve so much better than him, Michael added. Always did. After I hung up, I sat on my couch, the same couch where I'd broken down a year ago, and I realized something profound. The woman who'd been destroyed that night at Marcello's? She needed to be destroyed. She was built on a foundation of someone else's approval, someone else's love. And when that person pulled away, the whole structure collapsed. But from those ruins, I'd built something new. Something stronger. I built myself on my own foundation, and no one could shake it now. 2 years have passed since that terrible anniversary dinner. I'm 57 now, and I can honestly say I'm happier than I've ever been. My tutoring business has grown. I now have 2 other tutors working with me, and we're expanding to high school subjects. I've traveled to places I always wanted to go, but John said were too expensive or too far. Ireland, Alaska, the Grand Canyon. I've even started dating, casually. Nothing serious, but it's nice to know I can. That I'm still desirable, still interesting, still worth someone's time. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what happened with John. If I wish he'd never cheated, never asked for a divorce. And here's the truth. I used to think betrayal destroyed me. But it didn't. It rebuilt me. It forced me to discover who I was without him. And that woman? She's pretty incredible. I'm grateful for the life I had with John, for my children, for the good years. But I'm even more grateful for the life I have now. A life I chose. A life I built. A life that's entirely beautifully mine. So if you're going through something similar, if you're sitting where I was 2 years ago, thinking your life is over, listen to me. It's not over. It's just beginning. You are not too old. You are not too broken. You are not too anything except exactly what you need to be. Thank yourself for surviving. Thank yourself for trying. Thank yourself for having the courage to rebuild. Because at 55, 60, 70, any age, it's never too late to become who you were always meant to be. Did you like my story? Tell me in the comments which city you're listening from. If this story touched your heart, you can support me by sending super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories from Mama's Truth Tales that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story. With love and strength.